afternoon. Welcome back to Think Tech Hawaii and our series, Life in the Law. Today, my guest is a dear, longtime friend, Louise Ing.
Hi, Carol.
Louise is, among many things, a lawyer and one of the original founders of the law firm, Alston Hunt Floyd Ing. But today, we have the pleasure of having her join us because of some of her recent accomplishments, which are stellar. It must be the year of Louise Ing, right, Louise?
It's the 2 weeks of Louise Ing.
Well, first of all, you appeared on the cover of Midweek. I think we have that. Yes, Louise was one of the recipients of the Girl Scouts of Hawaii Women of Distinction Award. Is that right?
That's right.
And when is the award going to be given?
The award is this Friday. I should make a plug for
Yes,
the Girl
please.
Scouts. Girl Scouts of Hawaii's fundraiser is this Friday at the Hilton Hawaiian Village, and there might still be room for people who want to be inspired by young girls and hear from the three of us who are getting an award. I don't think we have to say anything. I think there's a video about us.
Okay,
Yes.
great. And then the other week of 2 weeks of Louise Ing is the cover of PBN, Pacific Business News. And again, this is because of a special award. Tell us about that special award.
Well, PBN very graciously informed us not long before the event that I was the recipient of their first ever Career Achievement Award, which was a tremendous surprise and great honor and very humbling. And so that was a thrill. And it just happened that all of this happened in March.
Amazing.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So let's talk about your career, Louise and I. You've been a lawyer for many years, and tell us how that all happened. I know you were not always thinking of law as a career.
Yes, I graduated in the 1970s, well, actually 1970 to be exact, from high school. And at that time, there were no immediate members of my family who were lawyers. I had a great uncle or a grand uncle who was a lawyer, and an uncle, I guess, but not in our immediate family. And really, there weren't that many women lawyers. So, in high school,
you mean in the community?
Just in the community,
right?
In high school, I really didn't even think about law. In fact, that was probably the furthest from my mind because I dreaded public speaking when we had to do it. In 8th grade, they made us do it, and it was really stressful. So I never thought about doing that. I did go to college, had an excellent experience, met really inspiring men and women. And I think it's at seeing them, seeing us all go through the Vietnam War and the civil rights movement and the movements towards social justice, and seeing a lot of my friends who I respected start going to law school, that I started thinking about it as a way of not speaking up in court, which is, again, not something I felt comfortable with, but just a way to learn what the laws were, because knowledge was power, and to understand how our country and how our system of laws worked.
Right, so this was in the early 70s, right?
In the early 70s.
And I know you went to Yale. Were there a lot of women in those days? Because I think I recall it used to be a male undergraduate school for many.
Well, there were more women than there used to be. We were the second full 4-year class of women. And they had also taken on 2 years of transfer students. So it was a high amount of women for Yale at the time. It was still 25% women, 75% men. So we were still outnumbered. But it was still a wonderful experience and a real growth experience.
I read that your counselor there had advised you, I guess, expressed an interest in law, but didn't actually direct you to become a lawyer.
She suggested a paralegal program, and only years later did it occur to me that, hey, maybe that's not something that would happen today or after 1974 when I went to my career counselor. But at the time, I think the idea of going to law school was still pretty new for a lot of students, and especially for women, and there weren't a whole lot of women there.
Right.
And there may have been a number of reasons. I didn't have a fully formed reason for why I was going to law school. It seemed a good idea, and there were people I admired going, and I wanted to learn more about the law. But her suggestion was, well, why do you want to go to law school? You can look into this paralegal program, which
goodness.
I did.
Yeah.
I actually did become a paralegal in Boston for a year. And that was a really interesting experience working in a private law firm working with the state college system and learning about collective bargaining because we represented the teachers. No, we didn't represent the teachers union. We represented the colleges who were negotiating with the teachers union. So that was a really good learning experience. I learned about writing contracts, but I wanted to do more with my life and learn more. So that's why I ultimately decided to go to law school.
So when you were in law school, which I understand was at UC Berkeley,
Yes.
Boltall, what kind of experiences there led you to your background now in business law and obviously your great community and philanthropy?
Well, I made, again at Berkeley, we had a pretty high percentage of women for the time. It was still 1/3 women. And I understand now in law school, many law schools, the class is over 50% women. So it is way more gender balanced. But at the time, we did have a good number of women. It was also a diverse class, a number of minorities, particularly Blacks, Latinos, and Asian Americans. And I got very involved with my Asian American colleagues in community activities with the Asian Law Caucus, which was the public interest law organization in the Bay Area at the time. And I think that was the beginning of seeing how to use law and our connections to try to achieve social justice.
And what kind of cases were they handling?
We got involved in, well, there were, a number of moves in the course of city revitalization or redevelopment to evict people from long-time old public housing. And so we helped on things like that. The big issue in the law schools was diversity and the lack of diversity in the faculties. I remember we demonstrated, had demonstrations about that. There was also the move to just increase diversity among the student body. Right before I came to law school, the Bakke decision had come out, and that was the decision, one of the first decisions that said affirmative action was not an appropriate way to diversify a student body, and so there had to be found other ways to ensure diversity in the university. And one of the things we got to do was to be part of a student committee that reviewed admissions applications to law school from Asian Americans, and they had Latinos and Blacks who were doing that for the Latino and Black students. Mm-hmm. So it was really a neat opportunity. The school did give us opportunities to have input.
Did you have a lot of mentors from those days, either college or law school, that you think might influence what you've been doing?
Well, I would say the mentors were primarily the friends that I made there. I made friends with a number of law students and lawyers, Asian American law students and lawyers who were from that community and had been very active in various community organizing efforts. One person I can think of that we all admired was a civil rights and business law attorney in San Francisco named Dale Minami.
Of course.
Who was a young attorney who had just started out his practice. I think he had been one of the founders of the Asian Law Caucus. So he was an inspiration. A number of us were his teaching assistants in his Asian Americans and the Communities course for undergraduates. And that was a great way to learn some of the history and to work with someone who was very, nice and dynamic and inspiring and also very demanding.
Right. I also came out of the 60s and 70s, and I think that period of time where there was so much activity, social change, social awareness, that formed a lot of my interest, but I think it seemed to have formed a lot of your inspiration and motivation to do the types of work that you're doing.
Yes. So even though a number of the people that I got to know in law school and were very socially active, all of us have come to realize the bread and butter of law does involve representing individuals and businesses and generating fees for the work. But I think the common core is that everybody has remained involved in some way, either through politics, social activism, or just being very aware and supportive of those efforts to improve our communities.
Mm-hmm. So then you came back to Hawaii.
I did. After graduation, I got married to somebody in law school, and we came back to Hawaii, so I could start a clerkship with the then Chief Judge of the United States District Court here, who was Judge Sam King.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another, really educational experience that perhaps got me started more into thinking about litigation as a viable option, because we had, as law clerks, we got to sit in on court and see many lawyers argue in front of the judge, and you realize, it's not rocket science, although it's really challenging and hard, but there's so many styles, there's so many ways to make your point and be an advocate.
And then you went into private practice?
After my 1-year clerkship, then I did go into private practice in a small firm, Carl Smith and Dwyer, that did, business litigation, real estate litigation, well, business and real estate, both transactional and litigation.
And when did you start with Alston Hunt Floyd Ing? When did that firm begin?
So about a year and a half after I started with Carl Smith and Dwyer, I moved from that firm to what was the predecessor of Alston Hunt Floyd Ing, which was Paul Johnson and Alston. At the time, it was a small firm, and I was only the third associate to join the firm. And I got introduced to the firm by a good friend of mine, Charlene Shimada, who was a clerk there but was going to be moving on to a big firm in San Francisco. But she just raved about the firm and how much she enjoyed working with the people there. So when she was ready to move on, I applied and was lucky to get the position.
And then it evolved.
So that was 1981.
My goodness.
In 1986, I was made a partner. And then in 1991, the firm split up. And so 4 of us from the partnership, Paul Alston, Bill Hunt, Shelby Floyd, and myself, formed the firm of Alston Hunt Floyd Ing. And come to, we're now in our 25th year, which is unbelievable because it's gone really fast. And don't we all feel young, despite the fact that it's been so many years?
How many lawyers are in the firm now?
Now we have about 50 lawyers. So we started off with 9 lawyers back in 1991, and we have grown over the years.
I recall when the firm started, it was one of the few, or was it the first firm that actually had 2 women named partners. Is that true?
I don't know if it was the only one, but I would think we were one of the first.
Yes.
I mean, the wonderful aspect of our firm from the very beginning is the fact that we have been gender balanced in our lawyer composition. And starting from the fact that, yes, there were 2 men and 2 women who were the founding partners of the law firm.
Great. Well, we're going to take a short break, Louise, and we'll be right back. This is Carol Mon Lee, Life in the Law, with my guest, Louise Ing. Thank you.
Aloha, namaskar, and hello. My name is Anu Hittel, and I host a show, Climate Change Beyond Outrage. In it, we go beyond outrage to look at solutions to climate problems facing people, nations, and the world. Join me every Tuesday at 1 o'clock Hawaii Standard Time. See you then.
Hello, I'm Stephen Katz, and I'm the host of Shrink Wrap, which comes to you live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. on thinktechhawaii.com, and then it's repeated again whenever you want if you go to the website. On our show, we will be talking to all different kinds of therapists, psychologists, psychoanalysts, psychiatrists, people who talk about the mind, the brain, and about different ways to find happiness. I myself am a marriage and family therapist in practice here in Hawaii, and I hope you will join us because I've got a lot to learn, you've got a lot to learn, and it's a great ride. Thanks a lot. See you soon.
Welcome back. This is Carol Mon Lee. Today's program, Life in the Law, is with my guest, Louise Ing, who has been honored very recently with major awards in our community. So thank you, Louise. So tell me, we're talking a little bit about your firm in the beginning of Alston Hunt Floyd Ing, which Floyd and Ing are both women partners, and of course you're the Louise Ing. The really original, I recall so well that when the firm was founded, the basic change in philosophy in that the firm, rather than just doing hardcore business, was really interested in public interest. And I wanted you to tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. And I think that was one of the attractions of the firm to me, is that when I met them, I guess at the time it was Paul Alston, Jim Paul, Dave Johnson, and Bill Hunt, and Shelby Floyd were the partners. But what impressed me was the fact that they were not only just excellent lawyers, had a great reputation, were great people to get to know, but a number of them came from a legal aid background. In fact, I remember, Paul probably doesn't remember this, but when I was a law student, I interviewed for legal aid, and he was one of my interviewers. But that was very attractive. And so public interest, an aspect of our casework has always involved some public interest cases, and that's been, a really nice complement to the business, the business-oriented and healthcare, real estate-oriented employment practice of our paying clients.
Right. So you have a solid group of corporate and business types of entities that can pay for your services, your expertise, and yet what percentage do you think your firm devotes to public interest pro bono type of work?
It probably depends on everybody's, people's plates at any given time. Some attorneys may be doing more at any given time. My guess is it could be 10 to 15%. And what's a nice kicker is if we're able to get attorney's fee awards from some of these cases, then that does help make public interest, help fund the not only the firm, but just the continuing ability to pursue public interest cases.
Support them, right. I know that you've been involved in some class actions, is that right?
Yes.
And in education.
Right. I think when I came, if it had not already started, it was starting soon, which was Shelby Floyd and Paul Alston were very involved in pushing or in bringing class actions to push for more services to special education students in the Department of Education.
Right.
That was one, and of course there were many after that, access to health care and state-funded health plans. We recently have represented homeless people who were protesting the way in which their property had been confiscated by the city and county. We've helped youth who were incarcerated or homeless youth get access to education. So there's been a whole range of different types of public interest practice.
What kind of work have you been doing that's in the public interest?
Well, my legal work is mostly fee generating, or I would hope it would be. And so my work in the public interest has primarily been in the area of working with the Bar Association, on Bar Association projects, with Hawaii women lawyers. So I guess the non-work activities that help lawyers have, give back to the community.
So promoting professionalism and in turn
service.
Exactly, service to the community. Because I know you were the fourth woman president of the State Bar Association. What year was that?
That was in 2011.
2011.
And if we're counting right, I was the fourth woman president of the bar.
Right.
And it was, of course, that I was trained in that aspect of leadership by working many years before with the Young Lawyers Division Board, as well as Hawaii Women Lawyers, where I followed your footsteps.
And you were the president of the Hawaii Women's Legal Foundation. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So actually, as you say, we've known each other for a long time, and I remember as a law student being very interested in the fact that Hawaii Women Lawyers was being formed as an organization, and going to a presentation at the law school about that when I was back for a summer after law school. I remember Ray St. Chu talking about that organization, and so when I became a young lawyer, I can't remember at what point, but I did join Hawaii Women Lawyers and got to know and work with you, Sherry Broder, Ray St. Chu, Donna Hanaike, and other.
But I also know
women.
Child and Family Services has been one of your many lifelong interests. And tell us a little bit about that.
Sure.
What do you do for that?
Well, in 1986, I was recruited to join the board. I was a brand new partner, and I think, I would credit Bob Clark, the former HEI CEO, and Jeff Watanabe, who's the chair of Hawaiian Electric Industries, and actually Paul Alston, because Jeff and Bob were on the board and they were looking for new blood. And so Paul suggested that they ask me if I was interested, and that started my career as a nonprofit board member with Child and Family Service. And I think between the board and serving as the chair of the board, I was with them 11 years. Then after that, I went on and did other things. But recently, a few years ago, I did rejoin the board.
What does Child and Family Services do?
Yeah. They are they're a social service, private social service agency in the state of Hawaii. And I think they're celebrating their 100th year, or they're very close to it. It's amazing they've been around for a very long time. But what appealed to me from the very beginning was the fact that they provided services to families and children from the time of infancy to gerontology. The shocking part is that gerontology is defined as starting at a very young age, 60, which
oh my goodness,
was shocking. I don't think that's
shocking.
Yeah, that can't be right.
And so what did you do as a board member? And how did your law background help you, do you think, distinguish you between or among the other board members who might have other backgrounds?
Well, as a board member, we were obviously operated at the sort of the policy level, but I remember being involved on the personnel committee, and I'm sure that my law background, the assumption is that you're going to know everything about the law, or at least be good at communicating and problem solving. And I remember that one of the things we did get involved in was probably not only looking at personnel policies, but also they did have a union, a social workers union. So we did get involved in some of the union negotiations as well.
Mm-hmm. And we're talking about leadership because of your recent awards. So how did all this fit into the picture of developing your leadership, your law practice, your community involvement?
Well, I guess going back to the one thing that stuck with me when I was trying to decide whether to go to law school is that my father, Sheridan Ing, who was a real estate developer and a businessman and an MBA, tried to talk me out of law school because he said, yeah, lawyers, all they do is they do their law and they're not really involved in the community. And I wanted to prove him wrong, so maybe that's why I was so involved as a law student during law school and afterwards. But I found many opportunities to get involved. I did serve at a time as chair of this Child and Family Service Board, and we also did a capital campaign that was big at the time, $50 million, that resulted in the community center out in Eva. So I think all of those nonprofit board experiences were a great opportunity to develop leadership skills and skills of dealing with people outside of the law as well.
What kind of role models did you see or find in the community that kind of guided you in terms of decision making as to what you could do best with your skills or how you could help the community? Well,
I would say that they were both men and women who were role models to me, and starting with folks like Jeff Watanabe and Bob Clark, who were successive chairs of the Child and Family Service Board, but they just had a great desire to do service, as well as just being very business-minded and having good approaches, sort of big picture approaches to being board members. And people like Patty Lyons, who was the head of Child and Family Service and really took it to the next step. She was certainly an inspiration as well, with her commitment and passion for helping women and children. And actually, I think, people I worked with Hawaii Women Lawyers, you, Ray, Sherry, Donna, you were all role models and inspirations as well. Because when we started out, there were not that many women who were practicing law. So we're all in it together.
Do you find that there's a certain style that has helped you get ahead in terms of whether it's how you communicate or how you relate to people, or how, as you watch other people who strive for leadership, who might be guided in a better direction if certain types of skills or other habits were nurtured?
Well, I think one thing I learned from going early on to a trial advocacy course on the mainland is that they kept telling us to be yourself. And because if you tried anything else, it would feel like forcing the issue. And which was good advice as the bar diversified, because of course, as being a short Asian woman attorney who was young at the time, I could not carry the same kind of presence as perhaps your typical, stereotypical trial lawyer who is usually a very big man. Right. But I think through that it helped me develop my style, and my approach has been, I remember something my father used to say, which is that you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar, that, you know, it really building your skills in dealing with people, understanding how people work, and, you know, trying to bring people along through persuasion, humor, and just, you know, facts and reason is a much less stressful way to practice law. There are times when we have to be firm and aggressive, and fight for our client and be assertive. But many times it's the more reasonable and cooperative approach that has helped.
And in many ways, for us from Hawaii, we understand that better as a style that works well here and, you know, is effective.
Right, I think you've hit it on the head. We're in a small community, a small legal community. We can't get away from each other. You know, we keep dealing with the same lawyers. The judges keep telling us they talk about us, even though we think we're anonymous. And so I think all of that helps keep us on track.
Right.
Not to mention that the Bar Association Supreme Court has civility guidelines, so of course the judges hold that to be very important. So we have to remember to behave ourselves.
Right. Okay, we're going to go to a short break, one more break. Again, this is Carol Monlee, Life in the Law, with my friend Louise Ing, talking about leadership. We'll be right back.
Okay, this is Think Tech Hawaii, and it's Wednesday. Every Wednesday is Energy Wednesday here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy. 4 to 5 p.m. every Wednesday. Come and listen to us. And just to show you what I mean, I'm going to ask Sharon to tell us more.
Come and see us every Wednesday, as Jay said. And we have people like Jim Albers from HECO here, and co-host Ray Starling here every Wednesday. We not only go on Olelo and OC16, but also stream live. So please come visit us, hear about the latest in clean energy.
Okay, Jim, you've been here. You got any comment on all this?
As important as energy is in all of our lives today, this is a great forum and a great format to vet those issues. So I encourage everybody to listen in and participate.
Okay, Ray, what do you think for a close?
Well, I think this is the greatest show in the energy world here in Hawaii. You can come here every week, 1 hour, and catch the latest on what's happening and hear from the people who really know what's going on, like Jim Alberts. We appreciate your coming today.
Thank you.
Ray Starling, Sharon Moriwaki, Jim Alberts, and Jay Fidel here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy.
Aloha.
4 to 5 p.m. Wednesday. Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you. Welcome back. This is Carol Monlee, Life in the Law, and our program today, Lawyer as Leader, Louise Ing, the recent recipient of the Girl Scouts Women of Distinction Award and PBN's Career Achievement Award.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about life balances and maybe challenges that took place as you arrived to where you are today. How did you face many challenges in terms of maybe your experience or your gender or?
Yeah, you know, I think that's a very common question for women lawyers and minority women lawyers is, you know, what challenges did you face as a woman lawyer of color? And actually, you know, I kind of draw a blank. There's probably something I'm suppressing. But I think that what stuck with me more is just the challenges of being a young, inexperienced lawyer and just being young. not knowing, and feeling like, you know, more senior lawyers knew a lot more, and it, you know, and would try to intimidate the younger lawyers, and maybe there might have been more of that as women and minorities. But I always, you know, more it was the challenge of just feeling like I didn't know enough and needed more experience and being young.
Did coming from a family with a strong business background and history in Hawaii help you or hurt you?
Well, I think it was both. And I think as a young person, you want to make it on your own. And so you know, I would chafe at comments made by senior lawyers sometimes that, oh, she got the clerkship with Judge King because of her father or her family or that kind of thing. And, you know, it may have been that the family connections help open doors, and we shouldn't, you know, if we have a goal in mind, we should take advantage of every opportunity that comes to us. But I think there's also a desire on, you know, everyone's part to make it on your own and on your own merits as well. And in fact, I think the reality is that you might be able to get an opportunity through a connection or someone you know, but in order to prove yourself, you do have to actually work it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know you come from actually women, a family of strong women. Both your mom and your sister are very accomplished too in their own ways.
You know, we were lucky that our parents always encouraged us to get the best education that we could. And you know, basically put no limits on what we could do career-wise. And so, you know, I just kept going. And you know, I think being independent and feeling that we had the power to control our own life and our own career was important. And you know, my family did help in that regard. And I think even our, you know, our grandparents were great role models too. My grandmother had her own career in a sense. She taught Chinese cooking at the YWCA and wrote a cookbook, which I still use. Her name is Mary Lee Sia.
Oh, yes.
And there's people of our parents' generation that still remember her and still have her cookbook, but I still swear by that cookbook.
As you said, as you talked about the fact that maybe your experiences were more tempered by your age and inexperience versus your gender. And I just think I graduated from law school in '74, and I think you graduated, you said, in
78.
78, that maybe even that difference in just a few years made an impact on the ability for women to get ahead, because my year we had 15% women, and yours, you already had doubled already, so
yes.
that more women were already in the workplace by the time you got out.
Right, so we did benefit from your experience, and even though we were a minority, there were still enough women around that we could have a very vital organization and a great group of working groups through Hawaii Women Lawyers and the Legal Foundation. And even the Young Lawyers Division was a very balanced group of people. And plus, I've been just lucky to be in a firm where both the men as well have been very supportive of hiring more women, helping women advance their careers. And I attribute it to these strong women that many of them are married to.
Yes, and I know in addition to community and public service, the firm is very supportive of a family life, is that right?
That's true. Mm-hmm. Of course, one may not feel that way sometimes because the work can be very demanding and time-consuming. But the firm does have, you know, a lot of the partners are, you know, devoted family people. Actually, a number of the next generation of kids has worked at the firm, either as lawyers or summer interns. And we've never felt hesitant about bringing children into work if we needed to during summer or after school. So yes, it has been supportive of family.
So in your development as a leader, these being able to work at a very satisfying law career, but also being supported by a firm that promotes public interest as a way of spending your time, but also providing you that support with your family and kind of a career life-work balance has been part of your success?
I would say that because as women, I think we still feel we want to have it all. family and good healthy personal life and good health and success at work. I like to say though that it's really hard to achieve balance and maybe impossible to achieve complete balance at any given time. There's going to be times when your career takes precedence, or you have a new baby, the family's going to be important. But I think part of the juggling act is just trying to figure out what your priorities are, what is important work-wise and family-wise. It's kind of fun to try to do it all. It makes life interesting.
Well, right now you're an empty nester, right?
I am an empty nester.
Has that given you the time then to devote to some of these other
it does
interests?
make life a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, you're still spending a lot of time making sure your child has launched and is doing well. And with text and cell phones these days, I think we're in way more communication with our kids away than when we had to pay a lot of money for long distance calls.
I know you have a daughter, so what do you advise her to do in terms of career and balance and possible contribution to her community?
Well, I'm sure I could be doing more, but I have a son who's in his 30s, and I have my daughter who's a college freshman, Kurt and Julia, and for both of them, I think we've just tried to encourage them to pursue their passions without regard. Well, they've been lucky in that we have financial security, and so they perhaps have more ability to pursue their passions. For my son, it was coming out of college and just working for Hawaii Winter Baseball with Dwayne Carisu's company, and where my brother told Dwayne, oh, he'll work for free. Well, I'm not sure that's what my son had in mind, but he did work himself up, and that was a great growing and learning experience for him. And we encouraged him, just do something you really love, because right out of college, you're not going to have to worry about a wife, mortgage, kids. And now he was able to get a job with the Red Sox, and he's really happy doing that. So
in Boston.
In Boston. And now my daughter she loves dance and performing arts, and although we did try to talk her into having a plan B, your kids are not ready to listen to you for that. And so we've just tried to encourage her with her passion as well. But we're hoping that through our example of working hard, that they will see that it does take hard work too to succeed.
Was she, your daughter, or you, a Girl Scout?
My daughter was a Girl Scout. She started out from being a daisy when she was 4, and she went all the way through Girl Scout in her teens. But then as school got busier, she did drop out. But we were Girl Scout parents for many years, maybe almost 10 years or so.
Yeah, and so that we mentioned already that the banquet honoring you and the 2 other honorees will be this week, right?
This week, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Congratulations. And as far as the PBN Award, Career Achievement, how did you, were you surprised to get that award? You mentioned it was the first award of career achievement, right?
Yes.
Is that right?
I was surprised to get it. It was a lovely surprise to hear about that, especially because there's so many accomplished women. So it is an honor to get that recognition. I laughingly say that it's because we've been around long enough that we're still standing, and so part of it is just as we have talked about with the women attorneys in our firm too, or just the young attorneys. To me, a lot of the career it's a marathon. It's how long can you endure and keep going. You may not be the big star at the very beginning, but it's just a matter of just plugging away, working hard, learning from everything, building your networks, and just keeping at it and in there.
So what do you suggest for young women who are, young men who are watching and learning how to navigate their career and their interest in the community to become leaders for tomorrow?
Well, I think it's the matter of hard work. My father said when I was a young attorney and complaining about the long hours, well, just face it, you're going to have to work hard until you're in your 40s. You're like, oh my God. When you're in your 20s, that seems like a life sentence.
Right.
And then
40s
40s comes around really fast.
Right.
Oh, it's gone. It's
Yes.
long gone. And we're still working hard. But I think that, that it's the purpose of hard work is just, that you're learning. You're always learning. You're always challenging yourself. You're going outside of your comfort zone and learning what you can do. And I think that's important. But I also kind of stepping back sometimes and thinking about ways that you can serve the larger community, whether it's other, younger lawyers, mentoring, volunteering, serving on nonprofit boards. I think the nonprofit boards also are an opportunity to get leadership training and skills, understand how things work in the larger world. I've been fortunate too to be on some for-profit boards as well, and of course that's a great way to learn about business from the client end, not just the law end.
Right. Do you do a lot of fundraising for your nonprofit boards?
I don't think I want to say.
Uh-huh.
That might be, no, yeah, I think we
You
do.
try.
We
Yes.
do. Yes, we're, that comes with the territory.
Uh-huh.
I'm on the board of Hawaii State Bar Foundation, for instance, which is a fairly new 501c3 formed by the Bar Association to raise money to, further the bar's mission of just increasing access to justice, access to legal services, continuing educational and professional development. And I've been on other fundraising boards, Child and Family Service, of course, the UH Foundation, Aloha United Way, Hawaii Community Foundation.
Yeah, well, you make a good role model for those who wonder what a law degree can do, because beyond the traditional learning to write or think or stand in court and speak, but also these value-added skills that help in so many other areas, and particularly helping the community.
I think that's true, and actually I've learned a lot from people that I've asked to be on panels. One of the things that I've done through the Hawaii State Bar Association is help with the Leadership Institute, which is an annual program that gives 15 younger lawyers the chance to get exposed to a number of areas: politics, nonprofit, business. So I've organized panels on the corporate Hawaii section of lawyers who are in the business world. And I learn as much from those panels as they do. And the takeaway is that, yes, we actually do learn things of value from law school.
Right.
And primarily the ways that we can be of assistance is, we've learned how to communicate orally and in writing, communicate clearly, to be advocates, to deal with dispute and uncertainty and problem solve.
Right. Well, on that note, and I think there's so much more to talk about, Louise, but first of all, let me again thank you and congratulations on your wonderful awards. Sitting here with me is Louise Ing, who has just been on the cover of both Midweek this week and Pacific Business News as a lawyer of distinction, a leader in our community, and we look forward to another visit. Thank you, Louise.
Thank you, Carol, for the opportunity, and to PBN and Girl Scouts for the opportunity,
Of
for
course.
the recognition.
Yes, and aloha from Think Tech Hawaii. We'll see you next time.
Chinese hackers versus Pork Adobo. I'm Mike Davidson.